Ah, Smart Water, now in a sleek can.
This feels cool, literally.
Perfect for social gatherings and on the go.
Should I start wearing turtlenecks?
One sip at a time, friend. Smart Water cans, for those with a taste for taste. Get yours today.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, everyone, to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. I hope everyone is enjoying their day so far. It is Sunday morning here in New York City, and we are armed and ready to serve all our great listeners here with a little bit of justice on the Red Apple Audio Network. So much that happened this past week. President Trump, of course, celebrating his first 100 days in office at a breakneck speed. The border pretty much is closed. 99% of the number of individuals, illegals coming across, down 99%. We now have an effort at making the tariff and trade levels equal as the Democrats complain about the economy. But the truth is that eggs that everybody was talking about are down 50% from what they were when he came into office. But of course, nobody talks about that. They just talk about the fact that, everything is terrible. Inflation is at 2.4%. And given what Joe Biden did, it's a pretty good number. This is a president who is focused on bringing manufacturing back to the United States, bringing investment into the United States, which I understand right now is at $5 billion investments coming into this country. And the Democrats can't wait to criticize it. We've got border security. We've got education is now being returned to the states. The civil rights of women in this country are being protected when the president is making sure that states that allow transgender women in women's sports, basically men in women's locker rooms, and fighting women in sports, he is saying you're not going to get the money, and he's going to do the same thing with sanctuary cities. If you want to protect a criminal who's an illegal in a sanctuary city, county, or state, we're going to take your money away. You have a decision to make. Do you stand for law and order? Do you stand for justice in this country? Or are you interested in making sure that illegals are prioritized over American citizens? And right now, we've got a president who is on a roll. And you know what? The fact that he's taking on the economy and trade is a recognition that we've got a president who is willing to take the hits. He's willing to get criticized because he's trying to make a difference in this country. He's trying to make it better for everyone in this country. And yet the Democrats can't stop criticizing him. But, that's what they do because they don't know any better. But, it continues with their siding with Abrego Garcia, the man from El Salvador, the MS-13 gang member. They're like, he's a good family man, a Maryland man. Now we find out, in addition to being a member of MS-13, which two courts confirmed, folks, he had his due process. When I was a prosecutor, I had a gang unit. And I had gang investigators who understood that gangs are identified by colors and by tats. One of the giveaways as to whether or not you're a member of MS-13 are your tats. Abrego Garcia had marijuana on one knuckle, a smiley face on the other, a cross, and then a skull. The marijuana is for M. The smiley face is for S. The cross is for the number 1, and the skull is for the number 3. MS-13, right there on his knuckles. That is an identification of an MS-13 gang member. Now, what's the big deal? There was a hold order on him. He said he couldn't go back to El Salvador because he would be killed because a rival gang had it out for him. Folks, what does that tell you? It tells you that he's a gang member because a rival gang wants to kill him. I mean, talk about identifying yourself as a member of MS-13. It's crazy. It is crazy, folks. Ignore it. And at a cabinet meeting on Wednesday, Marco Rubio was asked if he had formally requested the return of Abrego Garcia from the El Salvador prison. Take a listen to what he said.
Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia as a formal request from this administration to me?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to. But I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it because that's how foreign policy works.
The reason he said that he would never tell the press that and he would never tell a judge that is because he doesn't feel that the foreign policy of our country belongs to a judge. It belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. And it underscored the Trump administration's stance toward all of these judicial checks on its power. So in any event, we're going to talk about the first 100 days. We're going to talk about what the president has accomplished with a couple of great guests. We've got the Pulitzer Prize winning columnist Michael Goodwin to discuss President Trump's first 100 days in office. After that, the Joe Concha, who you may know him. He is a Fox News contributor. And he also wrote a terrific new book that he'll be here to talk about. It's all coming up here in just a few moments on the Red Apple Audio Network.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Judge Jeanine.
Hi, I'm Jeanine Pirro, and this is Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Today, we're talking about the economy, tariffs, and the trade policy, and it's time you talked about your own personal economy and your own finances. With Colonial Metals Group, you will be able to do great things.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Being a woman is a lot. Ollie supports you and yours with expert solutions for every age and life stage. They just launched 2 new products exclusively at Walmart. Period Hero combats bloat, mood swings, and more during PMS. And Balance Perimeno to support hormonal balance, mood, and metabolism during perimenopause. Grab yours at Ollie.com. Ollie! These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Joining me now is a Pulitzer Prize winning columnist, Michael Goodwin. I'm sure you know him. You certainly read his columns. And join me and welcoming Michael to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Michael Goodwin, you are a Pulitzer Prize winning columnist. You've been writing in the New York Post for many, many years, and I always read your columns because I think you're extremely smart, and we're thrilled to have you on the Tunnel to Towers Foundation show today. So let's start with the 100 days. Where do you come down on the president's 100 days? Good, bad?
Well, look, I think you would have to divide it into two sections, Judge. I think that's the easiest way to sort of parse out the different issues that have popped up. The first, I think, 70 days or so were terrific. I thought the border, he went right at it. He went right at the issues that he campaigned on. And I think we can't fully appreciate that unless you compare it to politicians in general who talk, get your vote, and then go into office and, I'll take care of that later. President Trump didn't behave that way. He went right at the issues he campaigned on, the border, a lot of the culture issues in terms of the transgender issue in sports, the DEI thing, the anti-Semitism on the colleges. I mean, it was a very powerful list of big-ticket items that he went right at. And I think very successfully, certainly in terms of the border, just in terms of educating the public about these issues and delivering, doing what he said he would do. I mean, that was one characteristic of his first term, and he has kept that. Promises made, promises kept. Then comes April 2nd, Liberation Day. And that has, I think, changed everything about how most of the public views the administration. You have seen, of course, the stock market has been on a wild ride. It plunged and then it's crawled back, so it's not down by a great amount. But there are these warnings of recessions, of inflation coming. Even the president yesterday acknowledged that there will be some inflation associated with the tariffs. I think this rollout has been something of a monkey wrench into the administration. I think it's distracted a lot of attention. I think it's created probably a lot of drama within the White House itself. Clearly, there have been some feuds over it. We hear talk of the, Lutnick and Basant and others, and Navarro. So I think it's roiled what was a really good, strong start and called into question the polls showing people losing confidence in the president's leadership on the economy, which was one of the big issues along with the border that he campaigned on. So I do believe that it was not handled in the best way. And I think the solution now is to get some deals done, to create some momentum that this period is passing. And until they get some deals with maybe Japan, South Korea, et cetera, I think it's going to be hard to take the attention back away from this issue. So I encourage and I hope that the president and Basant and others can round up a few countries, get these deals done, and show that the idea is a good idea and that the implementation is taking place.
Well, and it's like Secretary Bessent said, it's like a three-legged stool. It's trade, it's tax, and it's deregulation. So he's got to get that big, beautiful bill passed, and that's got to happen pretty soon, or Americans, I think, will be hurting. In one of your columns, I just want to segue here a little bit. You talk about the, as Donald Trump called them, the rogue judges. What's your take on what they're doing across the country?
John Roberts, the Chief Justice, has been called an institutionalist, which is true, and I think the best and worst senses of the word, that he wants to protect the courts. He wants the courts to retain this credibility. But what these district judges are doing across the country in issuing nationwide injunctions, I think undermines public trust in the courts.
Well,
a single judge cannot rule from Northern California that the rest of the country can't do what the president wants to do. They're nullifying the election. I mean, that's what they're doing. I don't know if that's their intent, but that's the impact. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And I think John Roberts and Supreme Court have to quickly rein this in and say, hey, buddy, stay in your lane. We'll handle this. But you have one case in front of you. Adjudicate that case. But don't try to solve the national issues on these. That's what the Supreme Court is for.
Well, and the Supreme Court did something rather unusual when they came in and put a hold on the TRO with Judge Boasberg and basically slapped him down and said, no, you're not going to do this. So we're all waiting for a decision by the Supreme Court on, the power of a local district court judge. And that's what they are. They're local judges. They're trial judges. They're at the trial level, not even in an appellate court. And they're trying to influence not just policy across the United States, but foreign policy as well. And it is bizarre, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the Supreme Court ultimately does.
Right, because, I mean, the unspoken word here is resistance. I mean, are they part of the resistance? Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like in these cases, and the judge and the Roberts and the Supremes have to step in and say, that's not your job.
Right. And it really is amazing that Michael Goodwin, you and I have been around long enough to know that, what we're seeing now is so different in terms of the behavior by these judges and, the belief that, they should be involved in cases that are not really within their own jurisdiction or trying to expand their own jurisdiction. But, having said all that, I kind of want to segue now to the issue of the anti-Semitism on the college campuses. And we've seen the back and forth with the administration and universities like Harvard and Columbia. I mean, how does that all end up?
Well, look, I think it's a test of presidential powers. Can the president withhold funds because of these violations of civil rights laws, which have happened on these campuses? I thought it was very interesting, the Harvard report, which effectively was a guilty plea to all of the issues it's suing the White House over. I mean, it says the White House doesn't have the right to withhold money from it, but here's Harvard admitting that the school was a hotbed of anti-Semitism for decades. So it seems to me that they've undercut their suit, at least in the public mind. They're not innocent of the president's charges. Again, I do think, though, on this case, Judge, that there's been some problems in the White House implementation. I don't know whether this hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but the team going after these colleges on this, which I wholly support. Yes. In fact, Columbia is my alma mater, and I think it's a great place to start because that is a real cesspool of anti-Semitism. Yes. But the team that sent the letter to Harvard outlining all the things that Harvard had to comply with, when Harvard said, no, it's too crazy, it's too many things, we're not even going to deal with it, the New York Times reported, and I believe accurately so, that the White House team then withdrew the letter. Now, this has not gotten a lot of attention.
What do you mean they withdrew the letter? Explain that.
Well, they sent a letter to Harvard saying you've got to do A, B, C, D, right. E, F. There's a long list of things.
But when you say they withdrew it, did they say forget it or we're sorry? What do you mean?
Well, they said it was sent in mistake, that it was premature. Now, one could argue, as the White House does and did with me about it, is that it doesn't matter whether the letter was withdrawn or anything because we withheld the money. We moved to freeze the grants, $2 billion or so, and Harvard responded by suing. So that's the issue now, not the letter. Fair point. But again, why would you withdraw a letter? I mean, it was haphazard. It's like it was done without everybody on board agreeing what it would be, because when the spit hit the fan, they suddenly found that's not the letter we want to, that's not the hill we want to die on. Right. This letter is not what we really want. So it's things like that look, this is an administration that's moving at 100 miles an hour. I mean, and this is a president who works, 16, 17 hours a day.
Yes.
So they're going to make mistakes. They're going to, of course. But nobody is working harder than they are to rectify the mess that they inherited. And so I wholly support and applaud that. I mean, we are, as taxpayers, we're finally getting our money's worth out of the federal government.
All right, Michael Goodwin, stay with us. We'll be back after the break. I want to talk to you about the legacy media.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I am speaking with Pulitzer Prize winning columnist Michael Goodwin from the New York Post. Michael Goodwin, it really is incredible. I mean, I don't know that America has ever felt that I'll use the female pronoun, that she was so involved in presidential matters. It's like we're in the Oval Office every day, not once a day, but twice a day. It's almost as though we are literally part of what's going on in the administration. I mean, the transparency is incredible. And that in itself is very telling that, the president has nothing to hide, that he is trying to include America. He is trying to be transparent, that there isn't the gamesmanship that, the Democrats would like to play. It's just a guy, a man who wants to make America great again.
Well, and I think you put your finger on a whole other big issue, which is the media. And I think he's doing that. He's bringing the public into the Oval Office because you don't trust the media to interpret and describe what's happening there. He wants people to see it so they can make their own judgments. And, part of this effort, and I think this is a terrific thing that has not gotten enough attention, they are trying to democratize the media, and the media is fighting back. They have a monopoly. The big legacy outfits have a monopoly on access to the president. And so when he invites the cameras into the Oval Office, the old saying, right? To see the sausage being made, to the cabinet meeting and things like that. The media is no longer in the way. The media is actually helping the president get the word out. But Caroline Leavitt, with the briefing room, inviting other bloggers and podcasters and other groups in, to stand along the wall, ask questions. I don't think people understand, Judge, that there is a group called the White House Correspondents Association.
Yes.
It is an old legacy group. It basically controlled for many, many years who got in with these small groups into the Oval Office or on Air Force One. It selected the media outlets that could be part of that. And in the briefing room, which people see on television, there are 49 seats in there. It's a very small room. Yes. They assign the seats. They tell you where you can sit. And this is government property. And this group has a monopoly. They're the ultimate gatekeepers in who gets in there, who gets to ask the questions. And the Trump administration, the president, Caroline Leavitt, Stephen Chung, communicate. They are breaking up the monopoly. And, of course, the New York Times and the others are going crazy. How dare you let in people who ask questions that we don't care about, right? They want to be able to control what questions are asked, what the public hears, and even what issues the president addresses. I mean, it's unbelievable, the arrogance of these organizations, and Trump is he's plowing right through it. He's not gonna let it go on that way. And I think when Caroline Leavitt really gets to, I think, what is coming, which is reassigning the seating, they're going to go crazy.
Michael Goodwin, how they complain about it. They say they are cutting off the press's First Amendment rights. No, they're not. They're expanding them to other outlets that were not part of the monopoly.
It's a very big event. And it's not getting enough attention because, the New York Times is complaining about it. They did a video on who these people are and what questions they ask and who do they work for. It's all because they're losing control. They're losing control of the what the president says and does. And by having that control, what they're able to do is manipulate it and describe it in ways that fits their agenda. Yep. That has nothing to do with often with what the president actually said or did, but it's their interpretation for their audience, which, of course, for most of them, hates Donald Trump. And so it's the most venal interpretation you can put on his words. And that's what he's breaking up. You would think they would be for democratizing the media. You would think they would be for more speech, not less. But think again, they want to control what the public hears, and they're losing that battle, and it's driving them crazy.
Well, they are losing it, and Donald Trump and the American people are winning it. Michael Goodwin, columnist with the New York Post, a brilliant analysis of the press and the legacy media's monopoly. It was great having you on, Michael Goodwin. Thanks so much for joining us. You take care.
My pleasure, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Today we have a great guest, a friend, Joe Concha, who is not only a Fox News contributor, but he is the author of a new book, which we will talk about. But Joe Concha is someone who is very knowledgeable and has a lot of information and opinions. And he has this new book out called The Greatest Comeback Ever. So, Joe, welcome to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Tell me about your book.
Oh, well, yeah, the greatest comeback ever inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign, unburdened by what has been. You have to have a long title these days, Judge, I started writing it last year once I thought that Donald Trump was going to win this race. That's when Joe Biden was the opponent, and Trump seemed to just be on the right side of every issue, seemed to have the energy, the momentum. And then from June 27th, that debate where Biden's brain turned to applesauce and he was eventually forced to drop out. Then 2 weeks later, we had Donald Trump nearly assassinated in Butler, Pennsylvania. If he doesn't turn his head just the right way at the right time, we're probably not having this conversation. Then he's at the RNC 2 days after getting shot. He chooses J.D. Vance. 5 days after that, Biden drops out. 2 days after that, Kamala's then the Democratic nominee. So to say that this book wrote itself, that is not an exaggeration, Judge.
Well, I got to tell you, as you go through it, I can't help but think that all of us felt like we had whiplash. Every day there was something new happening. The coronation of Kamala Harris, who this past week apparently gave a speech. It was her coming out speech, and she talks about elephants, and apparently has a video up of elephants and how they have to protect each other. I got to tell you, I hope the woman runs for president in 2028. I really do. But I also know that having spent, $3 billion in her campaign, having wasted it, I should say, and having paid off people like Oprah Winfrey and some of these other celebrities to come out and say something nice about her, I can't imagine that she would be in a position to get any support to run again. But what do you think is going to happen with her?
Well, if she were to run again, I think Democrats may lose 51 states, which is mathematically impossible, but she'll figure out a way. She's that bad, and we talk about it so much in the book. You're right, to go through billions of dollars in 100 days, by the way. It wasn't like a 2-year campaign. It was 100 days. And she had to pay Oprah Winfrey $1 million, for example, just to do an interview with her. You would think Oprah would be like, hey, I'm worth $1 billion. If we want to defeat Hitler, the guy that we're calling Hitler a fascist, maybe I'll do this one on the House. But no, pays him $1 billion. Incredible. And then she picks Tim Walz as a running mate, the goofy 80s sitcom dad from Minnesota, which was the worst decision I've ever seen in a presidential campaign. So what happens from here, Judge? I would imagine that she will run for president again. That the polls show that right now she has the most support, but I don't think she gets the nomination ultimately because she's that bad of a candidate. When she speaks outside of a teleprompter, she's a human Chernobyl. And you've got elephants, coconuts, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, the amazing thing is that you've got her and you've got now Tim Walz, who's out there trying to make a name for himself. And then Chuck Schumer, who's got who says he's going to have an all-nighter, a type of nonstop kind of a filibuster. And the guy can't go past midnight. So they don't have a leader. They don't have a message. They don't have a policy. I mean, it really is stunning. The Democrats should be better than this.
They used to be, right? I mean, JFK or even Bill Clinton, they were politically smart, street smart. But now we see that AOC appears to be the hot possible nominee in 2028, and she's doing the Fight the Oligarchy tour. Yet she's flying, talking about doing rallies, railing against billionaires while flying private.
Yeah, well,
make it up in the Bernie Sanders. Yeah, go
but
ahead.
the amazing thing is, I mean, she's got it was like 60%. The Democrats like her. She's the highest rated at this point. So it'll be interesting to see. And you got to give Bernie Sanders credit. The man is still going. Chuck Schumer can't make it past midnight in his all-nighter. And then you've got Bernie Sanders still flying around the country, 10 years older than Schumer, more than 10, maybe 15 years older than Schumer. It's crazy. But I want to talk about, the Democrats right now. And I want to talk about the fact that, you've got Shapiro, who seems to be kind of a strong person, a strong leader. And then you've also got Andy Beshear. I mean, of those two, who do you think is a better candidate?
I look at Beshear, Judge, and I see a Democrat in a red state like Kentucky, and his approval's at 68% in a red state. And I say, boy, if that's transferable, if they make him the nominee, that could be a tough guy to beat. J.D. Vance, I think, would be his opponent on the Republican side. That's usually the way it works. The baton's passed to the vice president. MAGA likes J.D. Vance. But, I think Beshear, if he's the nominee, but I don't know if the party wants somebody who is as vanilla as he is.
The Democrats are now trying to be the party of masculinity, which I think is kind of hysterical. And so you've got people like Pete Buttigieg, who now has a beard, and they're trying to be tough guys. And, just like Waltz, I carried weapons of war on the battlefield when we found out that was a lie. And, call me coach. And when he was an assistant to a coach. I mean, it's all crazy stuff in the end. So, I'm just curious how they get over that.
Well, that's the thing. I think there's some advisor that they're all listening to that says, when you put a post on social media, make sure you swear a lot. Make sure you swear a lot when you're in interviews, because that's going to make you look tough and authentic, and it just seems so contrived and phony. So, Pete Buttigieg, beard, I just, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing it, but I'm not liking it. That's the thing. They're trying to all be Trump now, right? They're all trying to be strong leaders, but you just don't create that. That's something that you're born with, and it just comes naturally. So this is a party that has no leader at this point. That is certainly for sure. And they have no message. And I think ultimately that's what's going to do them in, because I don't know what exactly they stand for outside of the things we talked about before, which is endless wars, which is males playing against females in sports, which is higher taxes, and which is doing like a lot of like performance artistry, like we saw with Schumer when he couldn't get to midnight.
Going forward, I mean, I think that unless and until they come up with a leader who's got a message, they're on the wrong side, as you say, of every 80-20 issue. And now the president is going after the sanctuary cities, and he's going after the ICE is going in, and, they're prosecuting individuals who are actually like judges defending the illegals and trying to get them away from ICE. I mean, everything they're doing is anti-law enforcement. It's just backwards. How they cannot understand that blows my mind. What I want to know is, how many cases has she thrown? How many cases has she taken the side of the accused against the victims? It is absolutely mind-boggling what these people are doing.
Yeah, the Alvin Bragg of Milwaukee, right? As far as just letting all these criminals go, it's incredible. And that's the thing. Like, you see then the media coverage. Donald Trump's arresting judges now. Okay, is there more to that story besides just arresting it? Oh, that's right. Walk literally a guy who's here illegally, who beat two people to the point where they ended up in the hospital, including a woman. They're sitting in the courtroom. You know how hard it is. You know this, Judge. How hard it is for people of this sort of violence. They finally get justice. They come forward, and then they see a judge get this guy literally in front of them and get out of jail free card. It is utterly remarkable. But Donald Trump, you're right. His first 100 days, I keep hearing about how, what a failure it's been. I'm like, a failure? Wait a minute. Inflation's at 2.4%. Gas is around $3 a gallon. 99% we are down in terms of border crossings. I know the tariff thing is a little shaky, but I got to break some eggs to fix that kind of problem. Overall, I think it's been an incredible job by the president so far, and I'm glad I was able to talk to him about it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you were able to talk to him about it, and I'm glad that you were with us today with this book. I just have one last question. Who do you think is responsible for the Democrats' utter collapse?
Ultimately, I think it's Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Barack Obama. I think the minute that they basically instructed Joe Biden to drop out of the race so they can install another candidate, Soviet style, no votes from the public, and Kamala Harris, and then riding that horse to November 5th. But Joe Concha, I'm going to interrupt you for a second here. Sure. I don't know that the public really gives a damn about that. I think that it really is more about the fact that, they couldn't come up with a candidate. The fact that they coronated Kamala Harris. But if they had a decent candidate, it wouldn't have mattered. No, it wouldn't have, because again, they are allowing MSNBC, CNN, the media, and social media to dictate the way they do things. And it's instead of just having principles and saying, okay, this is right and this is wrong, they're doing whatever gets the most likes, retweets. Look at Jasmine Crockett as an example, right? This is a girl who mocked the Texas governor for being in a wheelchair because he's paralyzed. Calls him Hot Wheels. Yep. Yeah, Governor Hot Wheels. You know what happened after that? Instead of her being shunned from all of cable news, we can't interview this person, she's crazy and that's so wrong what she said, she's on everywhere now because she's provocative. Therefore, she gets maybe a little bit of a ratings bump. And that's what Democrats are allowing to dictate the way they go about their policy. Whatever gets us the most attention, that's got to be good, right? No, it's bad attention. That's not good. So I think that's what's ultimately killing this party. They're listening to MSNBC and CNN way too much and not listening to the public, not talking to people. And that's the problem. Well, I think that I have a newfound respect, Joe Concha, for Senator Fetterman, John Fetterman. I got to tell you, at least he's normal. Some of them just seem so out of sync with all of us. It's just not normal stuff. Men and women's sports and, in women's locker rooms and, protecting illegals. And I often say, if you want to protect criminals in sanctuary cities, make them American criminals, How about equal process for them, equal protection and due process? Go ahead. Yeah, it's Fetterman. Look, he's been staunch in terms of his support of Israel. And then you look at somebody like AOC who didn't support the Iron Dome, which has probably saved thousands of lives, if not more. So, Fetterman, at least he's sticking to his principles. And if Democrats put him up for president, he may do well. I think ultimately, the whole shtick with these shorts and the sweatshirt, I don't know. There's something that looks lazy about that. But yeah, you're right. Fetterman's the only common sense guy I can see on the other side right now. Yeah. All right. Well, Joe Concha, it's great to have you on. The greatest comeback ever inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign. We thank you for being with us, and we look forward to hearing you again. Judge, thanks for having me. Have a great weekend. You too. Bye-bye. Up next here on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show, I will gavel out with my closing argument. It's all coming up here on the Red Apple Audio Network.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. It's time for me to gavel out with my closing argument. All right, so there you have it. The first 100 days from a columnist and from a Fox News contributor who wrote a great book about the greatest comeback ever. Right now we are making history. And I think that Michael Goodwin said it so well when he talked about the monopoly of the legacy media and the fact that they feel that they should be able to dictate who has access to the president. And in the end, when President Trump and Caroline Leavitt in that press room invite podcasters and other radio personalities who may not be and are not a part of the legacy media, the left goes crazy. But what the president is doing is he's opening up the White House and the new media so that Americans can not only see for themselves, but they can have experience the take by other individuals, podcasters, and smaller media personalities who can then give their own take on what's happening. But most important is the fact that by inviting us into the Oval Office every day, as the president has done, by doing 1-2 pressers a day, the president is having us join him as he makes history in America. And what we've got is transparency and honesty, and the president who's got firm convictions, who's not backing down. He is following through on his promises. It's what he ran on. He's not going to slow down, whether it's border security, trade, civil rights for women, education, spending, staffing cuts. The president is all in. And the proof is in the pudding. Ukraine is signing that minerals deal, and everything will sooner or later fall into place. You got to give the man credit. Well, that's all we have time for today. It's I hope that you join us right back here next week, same time, same place, for the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.